Hello, my Berry Aftercare friends, and welcome to this episode of the podcast. I'm calling this podcast Regain and the Return of Those Old Habits. What's up with that? So, some of this information may be a recap for some of you, some of it will be a great reminder. And if you're watching the video, this is me on vacation. I am not at home. I am not in my normal location. I am at a timeshare in Kissimmee, Florida. And no, I'm not going to any Disney parks. I am here with my bestie who is getting married in December, and we are doing some wedding planning stuff and also having some fun. Today we went on an airboat tour. It was really fun. And if you're part of the Berry Aftercare program, go online and look at some of the cool pictures. We saw huge gators out in nature and all kinds of birds and turtles, and it was just a glorious, glorious day. Anyway, so I wanted to bring this podcast to you today, and I would encourage you to please ask your friends to listen to this one ASAP, because there's an important reminder about some upcoming events. And I would like to get this information out so that people can sign up for those events if you are interested. And of course, for all the upcoming events, go to my webpage at www.conniestapletonphd.com. All right, so for a lot of people, the reality of having lost weight leads to regain. This may be you. It may be you for a long period of your life. It may never have happened to you because maybe you're just in the beginning of your journey, whatever. But for a lot of people, the story of weight has been lose weight, regain, lose weight, regain. And therefore, there's a huge and realistic fear of regain even after bariatric surgery. And what's up with that? Why is regain such a big deal? Well, perhaps you turned into the free chat that Laura Preston and I did on March 5th, which, if you're listening to this shortly after I recorded it, was just earlier this week. But it was March 5th, 2024, and we titled our free chat, "Does Your Weight Determine Your Worth?" And if not, you can watch the replay either on the Berry Aftercare Facebook page, or you can email me at info@conniestapletonphd.com and ask for the replay of that video. Really, really great information. Again, it was called "Does Your Weight Determine Your Worth?" So I want to start this conversation with a quote from Oprah, and I'll also quote some other people in here. These are powerful people, and it may help you to understand why we called our talk, "Does Your Weight Determine Your Worth?" So Oprah said, let's say in life you don't become what you want. You can have the greatest of heart's desires, right? And you might work really, really, really hard, so hard, she says. But if you don't believe you are worthy, it will not come. That is the magic formula. If you don't believe you're worthy, this thing that you're going after, this thing you really desire, this thing you work really hard for, maybe for a time, maybe for a little while, it doesn't happen. It won't come if you don't believe you're worthy. And also in our talk, we talked about a new recent, well, maybe she's not a new New York Times bestselling author, but she is a New York Times bestselling author, Jamie Kern Lima. And this book is new. Her book is called Worthy. And in the book, she describes the struggle of not reaching your goals. Sound familiar in the weight loss world? So many people struggle with not reaching their goal. And that goal in your world may be related to maintaining weight loss, or in other realms of your world, it may be not obtaining a job promotion that you've been trying for, or maybe you're trying out for a performance in a play, or maybe you want to be in a band, or maybe you're trying to start your own business. But that struggle of not reaching your goals. And in her book, Jamie Kern Lima, author of the book called Worthy, says, we stay stuck. Or maybe we never go for the goals or the dreams. Or perhaps we talk ourselves out of them. Or maybe the case is we give up too soon. Or, this may sound very familiar, in some way or ways, we sabotage our goals. I know that's the case for a lot of people. We've done prior podcast episodes on sabotaging your own goals, sabotaging your weight loss, sabotaging your weight maintenance. The reason, she said, is deep down inside, we don't actually feel we are deserving or worthy of those dreams and goals. So we've got a pattern here, right? Oprah's talking about if you don't believe you're worth something, if you don't believe, if you don't have the self-esteem internally, it's going to be hard to follow through. And Jamie Kern Lima is also saying the same thing. If we don't believe we're deserving of the job promotion or the new business or maintaining the weight loss or losing the weight in the first place, if we don't believe it, then it's not going to happen because we're going to sabotage or somehow not do it. This whole podcast is not a repeat of our talk, but here are the highlights of what I'm going to talk about in this episode. We're going to talk about that word that everybody hates because it's a painful word, and the word is regain. Regain happens. It's a huge issue in the bariatric community, and we need to address it more and more and more frequently. And regardless of how a person loses weight, whether it's through a medical weight loss program, whether it's GLP-1s, whether it's weight loss surgery, whether it's a program, whether it's a fad diet or your doctor puts you, whatever, however a person loses weight, what's required to maintain the weight loss is pretty much the same for everybody. So even if you know somebody who struggled or is struggling or has struggled with regain in the past, but they haven't had weight loss surgery, share this episode with them because it may very well pertain to them as well. So we're going to talk about the fact that we all have to do the same things when it comes to maintaining weight loss. Then we're going to talk about the reasons people struggle to follow through with those behaviors that are required in order to keep that weight off. And that's where this whole idea of self-esteem is going to come into this conversation. And that doesn't apply to everybody. But I will tell you, after 18 years of working in this field, it applies to a great many people who have struggled with weight loss and regain. And people don't want to hear that. Not only do they not want to hear it, they don't want to believe it pertains to themselves. I'm going to ask you to listen with an open mind, all right? So, and then we're going to talk about finally, where do you get the skills then? If this is a true issue for you, where do you get the skills to work through these issues? So let's start with the first point that I wanted to make. You know, how everybody hates that word regain and how so many people have a legitimate fear that after they lose the weight in whatever form, they may regain it. Very legitimate fear. And this may come from personal experience. It may come from what we've talked about in prior episodes about fear of failure, fear of success, fear of the unknown, fear of emotions. There's all sorts of things related to the fear of regain, and it's realistic, it's valid. And that's one reason you should dig into and lean into this topic so that you can learn more about it and know what to do to prevent it. All right, so regain does happen, and it happens for a lot of reasons. And some of those reasons are completely outside of your control. So it's not like, well, shame, shame, shame on you. Some of the reasons people regain weight are very similar to the reasons they gained weight in the first place. And if you've listened to me in the past, you've heard me talk about the sources of developing the disease of obesity and the sources of regain. And again, I reiterate, some of these issues, there's nothing you can do about them. Some of these things there are. So I'm going to name them, but we're going to focus on the ones you can do something about. I'm going to use myself as an example here, but not in relation to weight, but in relation to blood pressure and heart issues. So I had a doctor tell me one time, and I think I shared this in a recent episode, that the likelihood of my having a cardiac event is like 1%. And that's based on my lifestyle. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I exercise regularly. I eat like a bariatric patient, so I eat healthy. I do the things that are within my control to avoid having some sort of heart issues. Well, recently I've discovered that I have some heart issues, and it's largely genetic because there's a lot of heart issues in my family. Same with blood pressure. I was diagnosed with high blood pressure years ago. And I had a blood pressure incident that left me legally blind in one eye. I didn't know I had high blood pressure. I was in my 40s. Again, don't drink alcohol, don't smoke cigarettes, exercise, eat well. I do the things that are within my scope of influence to have a healthy life. But I have high blood pressure because of genetics. So your genetics are something that you don't have any control over. So if you've got a lot of genetic history related to your weight, that part you can't do anything about, right? So one of the reasons that people gain weight in the first place and struggle with regain is biological. That part you can't do anything about. All right. But there are a lot of things you can do something about. And that's what we're going to focus on. Because if you take the mindset, well, there's nothing I can do, it's all genetic. Hey, I'm wondering what my blood pressure would be like or my heart issues if I didn't take as good care of my health as I do. Right? It sure could be a lot worse. And so regardless of the things you can't do anything about, let's focus on those things you can to have the best possible outcome given your genetic history. There are also things like illnesses and medications that influence the development of obesity and influence regain. Things like metabolic syndrome, things like polycystic ovarian syndrome, taking certain medications like certain birth control or certain psychotropic medicines for depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. A lot of those things cause people to gain weight. So again, those are things that you can work with your doctor on to, have the best outcome of not having weight gain. But some of those things, you can't fully manage. All right. Your culture or your environment. When you grew up as a child, you weren't in charge of what you were fed. If you were fed fast food at every meal, or if in your culture certain foods were very, very prevalent. But as an adult, you do have control over those things, right? So as a child, maybe you didn't, but as an adult, you do have complete influence over what you choose to put in your mouth. Another thing that causes weight gain is lack of physical movement. You don't have that issue today unless you are absolutely immobile or, you have struggles with your mobility or have a lot of pain. But there are still things, maybe resistance bands or small hand weights. There are things that you can do in considering the overall picture of your health. But as you get healthier, as you are in less pain, as you lose weight, you have likely more opportunities for physical movement. This is within your control. Lack of sleep. Again, maybe you work nights and that has been shown to really disrupt sleep patterns. Maybe there's nothing you can do about that. But if you simply have bad habits and stay up too late and have to get up too early, that's something you have influence over. So as I go through this list, think about what can I change? What can I alter for the betterment of my health? Excessive stress. Oh, we live in our culture. We're all excessively stressed, as far as I can tell. But we can mitigate that by taking time for relaxation, by taking time for being in nature, for deep breathing, for meditation, for just taking just a few minutes out of the day to decompress and get something, don't raise that cortisol, that a neurotransmitter that wreaks havoc on all of our body parts. So we do have some influence on how we handle our stress. Now, here's the big one that we have 100% influence over. And people don't like to hear this, but we do have 100% influence over this. And that is our personal behaviors in terms of what food you keep in your house. Do you eat out all the time? And if you eat out all the time, is it junk food, fast food, or do you order a lean protein and a vegetable when you eat out? What are your portion sizes? What's the quality of the food you eat? Are you, as a post-op, living according to the bariatric basics? Protein first, veggies, fruits, healthy carbs, 2 servings of starches a day, or whatever your dietitian has shared with you. Are you eating at the times you were told to eat? Are you grazing? These things are 100% within your control. And I know you're rebelling silently, or maybe you're yelling at me as you listen to this. It feels sometimes like this stuff is out of control, but you have the opportunity to learn skills and tools to help you have more management / control, I hate the word, but over the foods you eat, when you eat them, where you get them from. You do have control over whether you give yourself permission to eat what you want, when you want, in whatever quantity you want. If you choose to do that, yeah, you're increasing the likelihood of regain. Absolutely. You do have the ability, and you have to ask yourself, do I have the willingness to say no to myself sometimes? Yeah, I'd like to eat 5 cookies, but I'm going to choose to eat 1. You have that ability. Are you willing? Now, I'm not going to talk about the food addiction thing here. I'm not going to talk about the emotional eating thing here, but those are things that can also be treated. So you have a lot of influence when it comes to regain. You do, let me repeat it, have a lot of influence, because a lot of regain is related to personal behaviors. What you eat, when you eat it, how much of you eat it, if you keep your home a safe zone, a lot of those things. But what happens? People find themselves returning to those old habits, or those old habits creep back in. Friends, you have influence over this. And how much success you have in overcoming, working through, dealing with your unhealthy habits is 100% correlated with how much effort you put into it and how willing you are to look at issues underlying some of these unhealthy behaviors. Because you do these behaviors for a reason. A lot of it has to do with how you're feeling. A lot of it has to do with how you feel about yourself. And I know you don't want to hear that, but it is fact. It is fact. Not for everybody. So don't hear what I'm not saying. But I'm going to say for a large percentage of the people in this population. And it's not just this population. Same with my world, alcohol, drugs, addiction and recovery, right? A lot of people struggle with believing they deserve it. A lot of people have come from situations where there's been some trauma. Major trauma, maybe it's less than major trauma, but those things take a toll on a child's sense of self-worth. Bullying, being called names, having somebody constantly tease you or torment you about your weight, whether it comes from inside the home or outside the home. That is playing a game in your head. That is wreaking havoc on your self-esteem, i.e. your self-worth. And if your self-worth has taken a beating over the years, it's going to be really difficult to treat yourself like a person who feels really good about themselves. In other words, your personal behaviors in relation to food in particular, because that's been your go-to, is going to reflect, and other people can see it, that there's something going on inside of you that says, I don't deserve this. I'm not worthy. Balk all you want at that, but please just listen with an open mind to the rest of this. This may not fit for you, but if it does, then this can be your key to learning how to maintain that weight loss. If it doesn't apply to you, call your friend and say, hey, I heard something. I think you might want to listen to it, because we can see it in other people, right? We can hear it in the way they talk to themselves. We can see and hear low self-esteem and low worth in other people. And sometimes it's camouflaged by high levels of achievement. Oh, they obviously have high self-esteem. They obviously have a lot of self-worth because look at all they've achieved. Sometimes achievement is a cover-up for a low self-esteem, and I can speak to you very personally from that. I was an achiever. I was a go-getter. I was going to be, look at me, I'm okay, because of what I looked like on the outside. But on the inside, I felt very, very unworthy of a lot of good things in my life. And I had to do a lot of work to overcome that. Okay, so we talked about the causes of obesity, the causes of regain, and I want you to remember a lot of these things you have influence on, and those are the things we're going to focus on. So again, regardless of how a person loses weight, the things we need to do to maintain weight loss are the same. So if you've been in a medically supervised weight loss program, if you've been on phentermine, or if you've been on a GLP-1 and you come off of it, or if you've lost a lot of weight on a liquid diet, or however you've lost weight, the ways to maintain weight loss are the same for everybody, right? You have to consistently, I call these the gotta do'ems. You've heard me talk about this before. My new set of gotta do'ems has behavioral and emotional and psychological components. So behaviorally, if you want to lose and maintain weight, you got to eat healthy food. Not 100% of the time, but the vast majority of the time. Real food, healthy food, nutritionally sound food. You're going to have somewhat of a low-calorie diet. We can't eat as many calories as we want and think we're going to maintain weight loss. That ain't how it works. You have to somehow plan your meals. Like we've talked about this in many episodes. For me, my meal plan is having lots of protein on hand, having a very clean household where I don't have a lot of junk food available to me. I eat pretty much the same things on a regular basis. Works for me. Other people want to have a variety of foods, and so they have to plan that. As a bariatric patient, protein first, vegetables, low sugar fruits, couple servings of starch a day, and not a lot of processed junk food. End of story. If you do that, which you do have influence over, chances are better you're going to keep that weight off, right? You got to eat regularly. Can't be skipping meals. You got to drink the water, take the bariatric vitamins. You got to move your body. You know, we've talked about these things. You've got to get enough sleep. You got to weigh yourself on a regular basis. And if you don't like the numbers, we can talk about that. There are exceptions, right? But you got to create a healthy environment for yourself, and you are 100% responsible for that. Nobody's going to do it for you. Either you do it or you don't. Either you do all of these things and learn how to do them if you struggle with them, get the help you need, or chances are you're going to regain. This is all 100% within your control. Now, on the emotional and psychological side, if you want to keep this weight off, you better be willing to do some digging, right? Do some digging. Because psychologically, this whole business about self-worth, how you feel about yourself, it's a big deal. I cannot stress to you what a big deal this is. And that's why all of my work in bariatric care, all of my work in the Gain While You Lose program, which, by the way, is an incredible class and it's starting very soon. And that's why I did this podcast tonight. I want you to sign up for it. If you struggle with weight, regain. If you struggle with the old habits having crept back in, if you recognize from what I just said that you have influence over a lot of these things, but you're not doing them, then you need to take this class, because it talks about all of the things that you do have influence over if you're willing to do the work to increase your self-worth. I 1,000,000,000% believe that how we feel on the inside, our self-worth, how we value ourselves as human beings, which was established largely in our childhood, will determine how well you treat yourself. Think about it. Kids who cut, right, do so to relieve emotional pain, because the physical pain is less intense than the emotional pain. For a lot of people, eating and carrying extra weight is easier than dealing with the emotional pain. It's the same difference. The self-destructive behavior looks different. For people who drink excessively and out of control and end up having a lot of problems in their lives, they're not treating themselves well because they don't feel good about themselves. At the core of all addictions is an issue with self-worth. It's just the truth. And people don't want to hear it, because who wants to say, yep, I'm lacking in that self-worth. By God, I don't value myself very much. But if you struggle from an addiction, or if you look at somebody who does struggle with an addiction, or if you struggle with chronic regain after weight loss, please listen with an open mind, because there's something going on in there that probably has to do with years of being teased at school about your weight, years of being called names, years of being shamed by perfect strangers, tragically imperfect strangers, if they're going to treat you poorly because of your weight, years of battering yourself because of your weight, years of thinking a number on a scale is going to improve your sense of self-worth. It isn't. A job, a title, money, prestige is not going to increase your self-worth, your sense that you are deserving and worthy. Nothing is going to do that until you take the time to figure out, why do I feel that way about myself anyway? Because it ain't true. It simply is not true. Every single human being, all 8 billion of us, have equal worth, regardless of our skin color, our gender identity, our weight, our IQ, our EQ, our height, what town we live in, what part of town we live in. Every human being has equal value. And you know dang well you would say that to anybody else. You know you would, but you won't apply it to yourself because you don't believe it. Again, I'm not speaking to everybody, but in our heart of hearts, if we are honest with ourselves, a lot of us have struggled with that or still struggle with that. So this Gain While You Lose program and all of my work in bariatric care, everything I do, comes from my personal experience and my experiences as a professional of well over 25 years, is that our self-worth has to be addressed and nurtured and nourished by ourselves if we're going to treat ourselves well. All right, so we have to become mindful, emotionally mindful of our eating. We have to learn and practice healthy coping skills. People say, I gained weight because life got tough. I'm a stress eater. I'm an emotional eater. Okay, then what that says is you need to learn some coping skills for dealing with stress. We teach that in Gain While You Lose. You have to maintain some internal motivation and commitment. If you've had weight loss surgery, or if you've taken Phenermine, or if you've been on a liquid diet, or anything where you lose weight in a big, big hurry, boy, you're motivated while that's going on, right? But once that weight loss stabilizes and or you regain a little bit, where's the commitment to follow through when the going gets tough? Where's the commitment to do the personal behaviors that you have influence and control over when you start to regain? No. You say, why bother? That's low self-worth talking. You say, I don't even know why I try. That's low self-worth talking. I'll never get this. That's low self-worth talking. Those are examples. That's what low self-worth talks like and sounds like. If you continually beat yourself up emotionally with your self-talk and your oral talk and your out loud talk and your thoughts, that's low self-worth, my friends. It just is. So if you don't learn and use the relapse prevention tools, meaning I know I get triggered when I walk into wherever it is because I smell the food and then I give in. We give in because we don't set boundaries with ourselves, and we don't set boundaries with ourselves because maybe we were never taught. Not everything boils down to low self-worth, but an overall pattern of not treating yourself well, not following through with what it takes to get the goals you desperately want. That's a matter of self-worth. It just really is. All right, so there are other reasons besides low self-worth that lead to people getting off track, not following through with the bariatric basics, right? It could be a series of bad habits, which means you better figure out how to learn and follow through with healthier habits. That's important. Read the book, Atomic Habits, James Clear. Great book. We have to develop healthy habits. But even if we work toward healthy habits and we got this self-worth problem, we won't follow through. Remember, people with low self-worth sabotage themselves because they don't believe they're worthy of things. All right, maybe you have unhealthy learned behaviors. Everybody in your family just ate all the time and they just ate junk food and they ate out all the time. And so maybe that's what you learned. I get it. That's a reality. Maybe that's why you go back to those unhealthy habits. You're an adult now. You have the choice over your life. You can unlearn unhealthy learned behavior. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes commitment. It takes help along the way. But if you don't follow through, again, I'm going to bet you there's some self-worth issues going on there. Excuses. I'm too busy. I just like to take care of other people. I just don't take time for myself. Other people need me. I can't take time for exercise. I can't. Okay, those are all excuses. And again, I'm going to say if we drill down into those excuses, I don't take care of myself because other people have more value than me. Translated, I don't think I have as much value as other people or as much worth as other people. All right. And then when we drill down to a lot of these things, and again, it's not true for everybody. It's not true for everybody who's struggled with weight. It's not true for everybody who's struggled with weight regain, but it's a lot of people. There's that low self-esteem, that feeling that I'm not as good as, I'm unworth it. And you were taught that maybe. I can't tell you how many people I have worked with who said, the whole family would get dessert, but this kid couldn't. That kid might have been you. Or you were treated differently by family members because you were overweight, or you were constantly being called names inside the family, outside of the family. You were constantly being put on diets. And maybe the people who put you on diets actually had your best interests at mind, but they didn't know how to go about it in a healthy way. So it's not all about blame and shame and other people, but it's about saying, is that my experience? And if your experience has been being shamed, being called names, being ostracized, being left out of things, being teased, being bullied, being, if your whole life was made about your weight in unhealthy ways, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm 100% certain that you have self-worth problems. Maybe it didn't start with you. But as an adult, if you're continuing to beat yourself up with negative self-talk, negative self-thoughts, you're carrying on the pattern. Excuse me. All right. There's other reasons people have low sense of self-worth, and it may be because you had a divorce situation and one parent said they were going to pick you up and they never did. That child begins to think, I'm not worth it. If my parent loved me, if I was valuable enough, they would spend time with me. It may not be true. Maybe the parent, had a drinking problem or whatever. But that's what the child interprets. That is how children interpret that. If you were neglected or abused in any way, shape, or form as a child, you develop low self-worth. It's just a fact. You may balk at that. You may resist this idea, but professionals know it's true. And in that book, Worthy, by Jamie Kern-Lima, she says some really interesting things. You become in life what you believe you're worthy of. Again, there can be exceptions because you can overcompensate for a low self-worth by having a ton of accomplishment. And I remember when I went into treatment 35 years ago, what they would tell me is, Connie, a life in accomplishment is often poor in joy. So I could have all the plaques on the wall saying I was the best at my job, or I could have I didn't have any advanced degrees at that time, but I had a college degree. I was in sales, and so I was, always making sure I was at the top of the sales list. But the joy in my life was not there. And I did these things because internally I didn't feel worthy. But the accomplishments, the plaques on the wall, the trophies, made me say, see, I'm okay. I have plenty of self-confidence. I have plenty of self-worth. Look at all the things I do. It was a cover. It was a facade. Jamie Kern-Lima also says, it's only when you believe you're worthy of it that your greatest life and greatest destiny start to unfold. So if you're struggling with your weight and you're struggling with weight regain, you're holding yourself back. You're not living your greatest life. You're not fulfilling your greatest destiny. But as you increase your self-worth, which is what I teach in the Gain While You Lose class, you start to fill your own cup. People can tell you how wonderful you are and pour into your cup, this theoretical cup, but it doesn't matter. There's a hole in the bottom of it. And if you have low self-worth, and it just pours out and pours out and pours out. And until you say enough, until you say, I'm going to plug that hole and I'm going to tell myself the things other people see in me that are good and valuable. And I'm going to increase my own self-worth. It's not until that happens that you're going to be able to live your greatest life, maintain that weight loss. Maybe not to a goal weight because of your genetics, or maybe not to the weight on the chart in the doctor's wall because of medications you take. But for you, wherever your body will let you get to, you can maintain that weight if you believe you're worth it, because then you'll do the things that people who believe they're worth something do. You've probably heard, if you want to be an artist, then you do the things artists do. If you want to be a wealthy person, you do the things a wealthy person does. If you want to be a whatever kind of person, you do the things that kind of person does. People who have high worth, internal value that can only come from you, live the life that they want to live. They live their happiest life. They feel content. They don't strive to prove it by getting to a number on the scale or getting to a pay grade or getting to whatever it is that they think will make them feel and say to the world, you see, I'm worthy. Worthiness is an inside job. Jamie Kern-Lima also says, in life you soar to the level of your hopes and dreams, or you stay stuck at the level of your self-worth, right? You can only get to the highest level of your hopes and dreams based on your self-worth. So if you want to be here in terms of living your life according to your values, but you're down here, it's like, I'm not doing the things it takes to maintain my weight loss, then what's in between here is largely about your self-worth. I know it's hard to hear, but I absolutely believe it. Okay, so where do you get the skills to work through these issues? Where do you get clarity about where does my low self-worth come from? And maybe you're not defining what you're struggling with as low self-worth, because who wants to say, hey, I've got low self-worth? Get to a therapist. If you're struggling to follow through with the behaviors it takes to maintain your weight loss, something's going on. So get to a therapist and help them help you figure out what it is. And then you can start to fill your own cup. You might want to start by taking this Gain While You Lose class, because it's a great segue into opening your eyes and opening your mind to some of this. Where did this low self-worth come from then? If that's what this is about. And you will learn the skills to start overcoming that. But it's a 10-week class. It's going to take you 10 years to get all the way through, through the stuff. No, it's going to take you your whole life. But it's a step in the right direction, and you will learn more about yourself than you ever thought you could. All right, so the take-home messages are, there are things you got to do to keep your weight off. There are some things about your weight and your regain that you can influence and control, and some that you can't. What are you responsible for? The things you can. Are you taking responsibility for those things? And when I say, are you taking responsibility for those things, what I mean is, are you finding out what's underneath? What's the root of the problem? What's going on that I don't follow what the dietitian told me I need to do? What's going on that even though I'm physically capable, I don't engage in exercise? What's going on that I keep turning to junk food? What's going on that I don't make my home a safe environment for myself? What is this about? You got to find that out, and nobody's going to do it for you. All right. So there are gotta do's, things you got to do to maintain that weight loss. And there are some emotional gotta do's that you probably know nothing about. But these are researched. This isn't me making this stuff up. And a lot of it has to do with how you feel about yourself at your core. And that's a hard thing to reckon with. It's a hard thing to come to terms with. It's not fun and it's not pleasant. And so I get why people are resistant to doing it. But if you truly, truly want what you say you want, which is to live a healthy life, live, your best quality of life, then you got to put your money where your mouth is, and you got to get the help that you need. And the best place to start for that is to take this Gain While You Lose class. I swear it will open your mind. To learn more about the class, go to my website, ConnieStapletonPhD.com, or email me, info@ConnieStapletonPhD.com. And we will get you on the road without any shame. It's a safe place. This class isn't where you share all your stuff. It's a class where I teach. It's like you're in a classroom online. I teach. I give you homework. You can do the homework. You don't turn it into me. You don't have to talk about it. For those who want to have more discussion, the class is from 7:30 to 9 p.m. on Monday nights. For those of you who want to stay and chat a little bit, I always stay until all the questions are answered. But the 7:30 to 9 part, you're not sharing anything. You don't even have to put your face on the screen. It's for you to absorb the information. And then I send you homework, and you can do it or you don't have to. I recommend that people do it and go to therapy and work through the homework with their therapist. But even if you just do the homework for yourself, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. So I would encourage people, if you weren't able to see the talk that Laura Preston and I did called, Does Your Weight Determine Your Worth? Then again, email me, ask for the replay. I will send it to you. And please sign up for the class. It starts March 11th, so you don't have very much time. And please tell your friends about it. So there's that. And keep in mind, friends, this is not easy. It is not an easy journey. It is not for the faint of heart. But if you want to live your best life, I really encourage you to do it. I've known so many people, myself included, who said, okay, this is not going to be easy, but I do want it. And somewhere deep down, I know I'm worth it. And I'm going to look at the hard work. I'm going to look at the pain of my past. I'm going to look at the unresolved grief, the unresolved losses. Has there been any neglect? Has there been any abuse? And a lot of people discover in this Gain While You Lose class that I never thought of that as neglect. I never thought of that as abuse. And it's not about blaming anybody in your life. It's just about recognizing maybe your parent had to work 3 jobs. That leads to some emotional neglect, not because they intended for it. They were trying to put a roof over your head. But as a result of not being there, children are neglected to some extent. So we talk about all those things. I fess up to all the things in my own life as a parent and as a child that, I hadn't seen as being neglectful, but I recognize that they are. It's not about being a bad person or blaming your parents. It's about just saying, this was my life. I was bullied at school about my weight. Now I feel bad about myself, or whatever your story is. But you can overcome it, and you can learn to tell yourself beautiful and wonderful things about yourself. Because when you believe you have as much value as everybody else that you tell has value, then your behavior will reflect that. All right, so join me for Gain While You Lose. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please share it with somebody else. And please go on your podcast site and give me a good review. I appreciate that. And you can always email me if you have comments or questions or a topic you'd like me to talk about. info@ConnieStapletonPhD.com. And remember, we're talking about you, your health. At this point in your life, it's your responsibility. This day and every day. I'll see you next time on Berry Aftercare, the podcast. And to join the full Berry Aftercare program, which, by the way, you get 4 months of free when you sign up for Berry Aftercare, go to www.berryaftercare.com. See you next time. Thanks again for spending your time with me. Bye-bye.